into. We'll play back some of the responses the president gave to the questions that were asked of him by journalists some few minutes ago. It ended at the presidency. And then also would have some civil society organizations also join us together with a financial analyst. Joe Jackson is going to be joining us as well. We have a conversation on the president's response to the state of the city as we speak and what is going to be done to revive the fortunes of the city as we saw in the few months gone by. So this is Ghana Tonight. We're going to be focusing much on the president's responses to the questions that we journalists asked him tonight. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook, on X. Let's get talking. Well, let's settle for Ghana Breeze.
Security has been heightened in the Boli and Sala to Nakalba areas following a review of the curfew imposed by the Ministry of Interior. The Special Operations Team has intensified its night patrols to ensure strict compliance. The IGP Special Operations Team has since stepped up security in the curfew-bound areas to ensure compliance, prevent crime and forestall any resurgence of violence. Transport Minister Joseph Nikbe is fighting off claims excavators have been imported and are being cleared at the Tema port under the cover of darkness. It follows videos circulating on social and traditional media alleging massive importation of excavators. Reacting to the deployments, the minister said the excavators are being moved out of the port to decongest the port for business.
I have said this severally, that the port is to do business and it needs space to do business. Keeping the excavators in the port was not helpful to us. So all we did is to move all of them from the port to the military installations. So if you watch on daily basis, they keep updating me with the numbers that are being moved from the Tamale port to either Marshall camp, either 37 or Bema camp, or the 49 Engineer Regiment.
Stigma and low public awareness continue to hinder the Ghana Health Service's efforts in managing the Mpox outbreak, with current cases at 494. However, the arrival of 33,600 vaccines in the coming weeks is expected to curb transmission. Director of Public Health, Dr. Franklin Asiedu-Bekwe, tells TV3 the service is optimistic about a decline in cases soon.
We realize that we've gotten some challenges in terms of concentrating or heightening our awareness. But I need to state that there are parts of Ghana that we have very high awareness than maybe in Accra. That we go to maybe Western region, parts of Takwa and Siarim, Wasam and Fi. Those places realize that we are really much more driven to the communities. Accra, we are not hearing much of it.
As the world marks Suicide Prevention Day, mental health authorities in Ghana have commended the decriminalization of attempted suicide. Acting Director of the Pantine Psychiatric Hospital and Vice President of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, Dr. Malug Yenusom, highlights the impact of the amended law on mental health care.
The decriminalization of suicide was born from evidence. The evidence was that research has shown at the time of people taking their life through suicide, most of them, over 90%, had one mental disorder or the other. For example, somebody having a depressive episode may have suicidal ideas and would want to attempt the suicide. Somebody who has got schizophrenia may hear voices telling him or her to take his or her own life or to go and harm himself. Someone who has got bipolar may have suicidal ideas.
Provisional data from the Ghana Statistical Service (GSS) shows a 6.3% annual economic growth in the second quarter of 2025. The expansion was largely driven by the information and communication technology (ICT) sector, which saw a remarkable 21.3% growth. Government statistician Al Hassan Idrisu noted a significant expansion driven primarily by the strong performance of the services sector.
The strongest momentum came from services, which expanded by 9.9% compared with only 2% a year earlier. Services remain the largest part of our economy, constituting about 42% of GDP and contributing more than half of the overall growth. Information and communication grew by 21.3%, while education and health also recorded double-digit growth.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. We're on YouTube. That's on TV3 Ghana on YouTube and also on 3 News. 3 News on YouTube as well. You're an integral part of it. Let's hear from you. It's probably brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Qualcomm Tonton Preco. And that's coming up next on Ghana Tonight. This is going to be our main focus for tonight, and it's for good reason. The President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, engaged the media, the first, as he indicated, the first in their series of engagements within his tenure as President of the Republic of Ghana. This is one that has been characteristics of his presidency, at least in the first term. We've seen this repeat itself as well. And a number of questions that were thrown at the President, before the questions were asked, laid a foundation to specific highlights regarding issues in the country. Topical being Galamsey. And he spent quite some time talking about the update on the fight against Galamsey, because that was one of the major issues going into election 2024, and the promises that he made to fight Galamsey, which got the buy-in of Ghanaians, would also then led to people voting for him. He gave an update on the number of excavators that have been impounded. He says 440, and then also some over 1,000 persons have been arrested, awaiting prosecution. Number of them are awaiting prosecution. There are 9 forest reserves that have been retrieved or reclaimed from illegal miners. He says the update he got is that two of the 9 have had illegal miners go back again to do their working there. And so the State Security Task Force set up by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is also on hand to fight these illegal miners and reclaim those 2 forest reserves back. So as we speak, you can safely say out of the 9, there are still 2 of them that have been invaded by illegal miners again. He reiterated his commitment to the repeal of LI 2462. Let's hear from the President, specifically on the call for the declaration of state of emergency in some of the areas where Galamsey is taking place, because these illegal miners have been emboldened to even fight the state security and the task force, injuring some of them. And this is what the President said regarding the calls for him to declare a state of emergency. Take a look.
I've been reluctant to implement a state of emergency in the Galamsey fight because we've not exhausted the powers we even have without a state of emergency. We have the opportunity to arrest anybody, to confiscate any such thing. There are laws for forest protection and all that give us enough powers to be able to act. Implementing a state of emergency might sound nice, but it should be the last extreme, the last resort. So for now, let's exercise all the powers we have. And if it becomes necessary for a state of emergency, then we'll look at it. It means we have to go to Parliament. The President can't just declare a state of emergency without, doing going to Parliament, because there's a limit to how long you can maintain that state of emergency. And so I believe that we still have leverage to continue to fight Galamsey without necessarily implementing a state of emergency. It means that we have to delineate the areas where the state of emergency is operational. And if you look at the area where Galamsey is taking place, it covers several districts of our country. And so we would do it if it becomes necessary. But for now, I think that we've given the security services enough powers to be able to deal with people who are found to be involved in Galamsey.
One of the foremost civil society organizations leading this call for the president to declare a state of emergency is Eco-Conscious Citizens. Its co-founder and national coordinator, Awula Sewa, is joining us on Zoom right now. Awula, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, and as usual, thank you very much for having me.
You heard the president directly there, responding to the calls that you, together with others, have been making for him to declare a state of emergency. He says he will do so when the need arises. But for now, we haven't exhausted, or he...
I really am lost for you.
Yes, exhausted the powers allocated to him. Does that tick the box and really satisfy the concerns you had?
Of course it doesn't. The president himself has admitted that we face a national emergency. Now, are they using all the powers they have to deal with it? It appears not. It appears not. If you have a national emergency and you look at the state of the situation we find ourselves in, the ecocide is ongoing, kidney disease has gone, cases have gone up a fourfold. Ghana Water is telling us that they need to increase the tariffs because they're spending so much money purifying the water. But more importantly, people are dying. So I equate it to a house on fire, and you're using buckets of water to put out the fire, and you refuse to call the fire engine. So one wonders whether you're waiting for the house to be completely burnt before you call in the fire engine. I'm very disappointed because in the run-up to the elections, you had the DC stalwarts from Honorable Okojetua Blakwa, quite a number of them calling, and the president himself calling for a state of emergency. I'm sure they had all this information at their disposal. Now things have got from bad to worse. The forest reserves that you said you had retrieved, 2 of them have fallen back into the hands of the illegal miners.
Well,
so
he
what
says
I'm wondering,
there are some measures to reclaim them or retrieve them from these illegal miners.
You see, Alfred, we are being poisoned as I speak. The poisoned waters their cobra is still diverted. As we speak, our water bodies are still being poisoned. Water is life. The same water is being used to water our farmlands. So what on earth are we waiting for? For every Ghanaian to have kidney disease before we decide to act in a robust matter? What we are doing is that we are telling the illegal miners that carry on. We don't think what you are doing is serious. And let's stop calling it Galamsey, only because when we use the term Galamsey, they were using hand tools. Now they're using excavators. Look at the numbers still coming into the country. There's no building boom. So they are going to our forest reserves and farmlands and so on and so forth. So if we look at what is happening right now, it beggars belief that we are facing ecocide, we are facing an existential threat, and we are still dilly-dallying. When it came to COVID, we were able to do what we needed to do to ensure that COVID did not spread. So I'm asking myself that why is the president so reluctant to declare a state of emergency?
Well, he has explained. He has explained why he's reluctant, and you're saying that doesn't tick the box for you. And his position is that
house burning.
Right. His position is that there's so much powers that have not been exhausted, essentially, and so to the extent that the powers allocated to deal with this, for instance, to the security agencies to deal with this, has not been exhausted, then really.
So what are we waiting for to exhaust them? We had the IGP's task force is being disbanded. Now we find out that excavators are moving into our forest reserves. What is happening is heartbreaking. If we have all these measures, what are we waiting for to use them? If we are not using them, what we are asking for is, don't call it a state of emergency if it's the word that is discouraging you, but then use all the resources and measures at your disposal to stop the ecocide. People are dying. People are dying. Our waters are being poisoned. Our farmlands are being poisoned. Our forest reserves are being decimated. There are deformed babies being born. There are maternal deaths. What on earth are we waiting for to use all the measures that President claims have not yet been exhausted to deal with the situation? Does it look to anybody like the situation is being dealt with in the manner in which it should be dealt with? No. What has stopped us from reclaiming our water bodies? Why is the Akumbra River still diverted? Why are other rivers being diverted? What exactly is the fight? Because I don't see any serious, sustained fight going on. What was being asked for with a targeted state of emergency was to go to the hotspot simultaneously, using your Air Force, your Army, if you need air cover, whatever you need to do to deal robustly with the mayhem before it deals with us. The window of opportunity is closing. It is closing. And soon difficult because the irresponsible miners are getting stronger and stronger, and they are acting with more and more impunity. They actually dare to engage with the task force.
Okay, right. But then one other call that you've been making is for the repeal of the LI 2462. The president gave an update on that today, that the LI 2462 will be repealed, and in fact, already measures are in place to have that done. And that he did commit himself to today as well.
Well, he committed to lots of things before the elections. So as soon as the LI 2462 is actually laid before Parliament for a repeal and not an amendment, when it is passed, then we'll know that that box has been ticked. Before that is done, we are cautiously optimistic, but we are waiting for it to actually be repealed. It's a low-hanging fruit, and it should have been repealed months ago. We are in September, getting to the middle of September. But we are cautiously optimistic. But we have to say in no uncertainty terms that people are losing hope. People voted against the past administration because they were not tackling the ecocide that is engulfing us. They were not tackling it, and that is why this government came to power. And it doesn't look like they are dealing with the ecocide. It looks like musical chairs. We hear about high-ups within the current administration who are taking over taking over mining. It's like musical chairs. And I want to use this opportunity to say that Ghanaians are losing hope. They trusted the current administration to deal with this problem. It's taken up to now to commit to repealing LI 2462. The state of emergency, you are hesitant to call for a targeted state of emergency. We are saying that it's like a house burning. You're using buckets of water. When you can get the fire engine and deal decisively with the fire, you are reluctant to do so. Are you waiting for the house to burn down completely before you call the fire service, which for us is calling for a targeted state of emergency? And if I may say so, all you need to do is to consult the Council of State, call the state of emergency, and then you go to Parliament for Parliament to give you, a longer period. Because when you call it, it's valid for 7 days. So it can be called today if we care to do so.
Okay. Well, this is just the beginning of a very long conversation on some of the things that the president talked about. So thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight for the initial reaction or responses to the president's answer to the question of the state of emergency. Thank you, Awula. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Awula Sewa is the co-founder and executive director of the Eco-Conscious Citizens, one of the foremost society groups in the environment sector, talking to us here on Ghana Tonight. Now, one other issue as well that the president responded to is the state of the currency, the cedi. We've seen a decline in the value of the cedi against the dollar over the last couple of weeks. Now, this has been occasioned essentially by, as was diagnosed by Bloomberg, the continuous high demand for dollars, even though the Bank of Ghana has now decided to take a backseat, not intervene in the market, as we've seen since January. What is going to be the result of the Bank of Ghana's decision to step back and not intervene in the market? How is that going to impact on the real value of the cedi against the dollar? The president was asked this question by my colleague, Kemini Amano, just about over an hour ago when we had the opportunity to ask the president questions at this encounter. Take a look.
We recognize a very steep appreciation in the value of the cedi in response to the reforms that we were carrying out. And for those of you who listened to me, there was one occasion where I said, people were asking whether it will go below 10. And I said, it is dropping, but it will find its true value. It was undervalued at 16, and it probably is overvalued at 10. But somewhere between there, we have the real value of the cedi. And so I believe that it is about stopping rapid depreciation of the currency. Almost every currency would realize either depreciation or appreciation in the course of a year. But when you have steep depreciation of about, like we had in 2024, 25% depreciation in the currency in the first half of the year, it makes planning difficult. And so, yes, Bank of Ghana has been intervening in the forex market, but they've withdrawn. And what happened was that because of the rapid appreciation in the value of the cedi, we saw an exponential increase in imports, because then people could buy cheaper dollars and so they could import more, which is a natural economic phenomenon. But on the other side, exporters are not happy because they get less cedis for what they export. And so every country tries to find out a balance where exporters are able to do good business and importers are not overburdened by high forex rates. Where that lies, I don't know. I'm not a central bank. But the cedi is making an adjustment, and I believe that it will settle at a certain rate, and we will make sure that any depreciation that occurs in the value of the cedi is within a margin of about 5% per annum. That is what we target. And so for now, there's still speculation. It's also coincided with a period where we saw a reduction of 50% in remittances, because citizens in the diaspora were taken aback by the rapid appreciation of the cedi. And so if somebody was building a house, if he was going to send $100,000, it meant that he was losing a certain percentage of that 100,000. And most of them would decide to adopt a wait-and-see attitude and say, oh, no, as for cedi, it's not possible that the cedi can regain its value to that extent. By all means, it will go up again. So I'll hold back my remittance until the cedi goes back up. So we saw a 50% reduction. But there were also some other factors. There were some money transfer companies that were collecting cedis abroad.
That's the president's response to what is happening to the cedi right now. Joe Jackson is a financial analyst, CEO of Dalex Finance, joining us right now. Mr. Jackson, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. You heard the president respond to that specific question about the state of the cedi, the strength of the cedi against a major trading currency, and what is going to be done in the next few months ahead of us, looking at the true value of the cedi. I want to first of all find out from you if you still go by that narrative by the president that the true value of the cedi is between 12, 13 cedis.
Okay. Now, first of all, let's be clear here. There is a myth that the value of the cedi is the most important indicator of the economic health of the country. In fact, you know the oft-quoted phrase that if the fundamentals are bad, the exchange rate will expose you. That's strictly not true. It's not true because, to a large extent, the value of the cedi is a matter of demand and supply. It's a matter of how much cedis are available versus how much dollars are available, and either the cedi is chasing the dollar or the dollar chasing the cedi will move the rates up or down. And so when this regime took over and started exercising some discipline in our affairs, and the cedi's value appreciated, and the rate dropped to 10 cedis 50 to a dollar. At that point, the central bank intervened and then kept the cedi's rate at that level. And the assumption was that the new true value of the cedi was 10 cedis 50 pesos. Now, if that value was right, then the central bank will not need to defend that rate to keep it at that level. The challenge was that rate, with hindsight, is a bit too low. And what that rate did was to increase demand for dollars like crazy because imports were relatively cheaper. And so when the central bank was trying to defend that rate, they pump in dollars to keep the rate stable. But unfortunately, because the rate is too low, you pump in dollars, it is swallowed. You pump in dollars, it is swallowed. And at some point, the central bank came to the realization that, listen, I can't keep pumping dollars like that. So last month, it announced that it will stop intervening in the market because it just couldn't keep intervening and pumping in dollars and pumping in dollars. It had to keep an eye on our reserves. It had to keep an eye on all that was happening elsewhere. So guess what happened? It stopped intervening and the rate went. It's okay. There's nothing really wrong with that. It's so easy for us to forget that we were at a rate of 15, official rate. So even if the rate came to between 12 and 13, still not too bad. It's a much more defensible rate for the central bank to keep stable. And then the sectors that lost out dramatically over a very low rate between cedi and dollar, like the cocoa sector. Remember that the cocoa sector increased producer price in dollars and barely moved the needle in cedis. You also think about it. The exports were suffering. Government revenues at the port were suffering. And so 12.13 may be a much better rate than the 10.5 that we tried to defend and for which we were moving, intervening in the market. So I think this correction is okay, and I call it a correction. And my attitude now is that no panic. Calm down. It's a necessary correction. And let's hope that the central bank can intervene to keep this rate stable for some time. It's a much easier defensible rate. A stable rate is important for planning. A stable rate is important for all of us who are involved in business at different levels. So we hope that the rate will stabilize somewhere between 12 and 13, keep steady, stable, and that will be far more beneficial than a volatile rate at a low level. In summary, the cedi's slide came about because the central bank stopped intervening.
Mr. Jackson, and in talking about the central bank that pulling back and in the intervention of or in the forex market, which then led to sustaining the value of the cedi over time. The decision that the central bank has taken not to intervene in the forex market anymore. How do you see things playing out in the months ahead of us, especially regarding how the cedi levels up against the dollar? Because we're going into the last quarter of the year where there's high demand for dollars, as we've seen the cyclical nature of the cedi-dollar relationship. The last quarter of the year, a lot of traders importing things because we're getting into the festive season. There's going to be a lot more demand for dollars. How do you think things playing out?
Well, for starters, remember that inflation has fallen dramatically. That will have an effect on our exchange rate. Lower inflation we are facing will bring down the and do not underestimate the fact that inflation has dropped steadily and has now dropped. If it continues, we'll very soon be in single digit of inflation, in the era of single digit inflation. On top of that, on the fiscal side, there's a lot more discipline. A lot of discipline on the fiscal side. Spending is controlled. Look at what happens with the T-bill auction. The government goes to the market and only takes as much as it requires. If it is oversubscribed, it leaves the rest on the table. If it is undersubscribed, it hits its target interest rates and it backs off. Those have to count for something. And that accounts for the estimate we have that even though the structure of the economy hasn't changed, we're still able to operate at a lower exchange rate than we did some months ago, in for example, December last year. So those are the reasons why we think so. And that's a big if we can to execute the 24-hour economy like the blueprint says, then we should start seeing some real changes in the structure of the economy. But there's a reason to be optimistic that the cedi can be defended in the range of between 12 and...
All right, so Mr. Justin, so the president talked about the 12, 13, thereabout as well, because if you listen to him, as he referenced a couple of months ago, he had indicated that from the analysis that has been made and available to him, the real value of the cedi by end of year will be around 12 cedis, thereabout 12, 13 cedis. He reiterated that position. It's one that, as a financial analyst, does it align with your projections as well?
Well, first of all, if, like we expect, between 12 and 13 is the right rate, there'll be less need for an intervention. And when an intervention is required to keep it stable, the central bank will be much better equipped to do it.
Right, and you reference inflation, right? The continuous, consistent decline in the inflation rate since January, as we've seen. How that has impacted on the real economy. I'm talking about the cost of living of Ghanaians, so as to have a direct impact on people's daily expenditure as well, because you're already looking at end of year, all things being equal, a consistent decline in the inflation rate. The president also referenced a document that has been submitted to him that we have close to over 4,000 items that have seen consistent decline in prices on the market. I want to find out from you as well how this could be done to especially sustain the direct impact that this would have on the cost of living, the decline in inflation consistently. Mr. Jackson.
Well, to the extent that we say the old rate was overvalued at 10.5, there'll be difficulties in the real economy. But to the extent that we are getting to a point where possibly we have a rate that makes sense, a rate that is the true rate in the short to medium term, then we can start having an effect on the real economy where people are planning, dollars are available, and medium term decisions can be made in the private sector.
Jackson, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much for joining us. And as I indicated, the preliminary reactions or responses to some of the things the president said is for tonight. The coming days will sink our teeth a bit more into the details of it. Thank you so much. Joe Jackson is CEO of Delex Finance, financial analyst, joining us here on Ghana Tonight. We're back shortly after this quick break. You'll hear the president respond to the comments that the General Secretary of the NDC, Fifi of Equity, made about some NDC lawyers who, according to him, are cutting deals with persons who are standing trial for an act of corruption or the other. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Reporting from the Takoradi Market Circle.
From the heart of the Upper West Regional Capital.
From the heart of the Ashanti Kingdom.
Reporting from Sunyani.
From the Central Business District of Navrongo.
The parliamentarians are on recess.
This is where it all unfolds. The moments that potentially alters the course of our nation and the world. These are the individuals we recognize, the voices we amplify, who appears on screen and who contributes behind the scenes. With professionalism at our core, we bring you news you can trust, impact journalism that makes a difference. This illustrates how diverse perspectives enhance our strength and reinforces our mission. This is 3 News, leaders in breaking news, exclusive interviews, facts and analysis on TV, radio, online and digital. 3 News, first in news.
that is being brought to bear on people who are supposed to do what is right. I'm not mentioning names. A time may come where we may have to.
Well, that's the General Secretary of the ruling NDC, Fifi Fiavikwete. In fact, today he was at the presidential encounter as well. And I asked this question that of the president, referencing this statement that Fifi Kwete made regarding the Operation Recover or Loot, that some NDC lawyers are busily cutting deals with persons to be prosecuted for acts of corruption. And this is what the president said in response to my question tonight.
One of the questions, and that is the accusation that there's interference in terms of the oral investigations. I would have very conveniently said the General Secretary himself is here, and so I'll call him to present his evidence to the public. But I can assure you that there's no way anybody can interfere. I cannot be in people's mind to stop them from attempting to interfere, but I am responsible for making sure that that interference comes to naught. And so I closely monitor. I hold regular meetings with the Attorney General. He briefs me on the status of investigations. And so I'm confident that, the cases will go ahead based on their merits and that nobody would have the opportunity to interfere. If anybody goes lobbying people or paying people to interfere, they probably are just throwing away their resources. All cases will be investigated and come to their logical end. If people are exonerated in the courts, that's what justice is all about. We will do our part, and we're being painstaking in preparing the dockets, and that's why people are complaining that it's a bit slow. But you don't want to hurriedly take a docket to courts and have it thrown out on technicality, and that's why you need to make sure that by the time a docket is prepared and prosecution starts, you have a watertight case that will ensure that you get a conviction. And so that's the process that we're going through.
Well, so that's the president, John Dramani Mahama, there. Now, before we go here on Ghana Tonight, there's some information that has just come through. We've been monitoring quite closely related to the Tamale Central by-election. Earlier, there was information that there were 3 persons who were, or candidates who were going to contest this by-election on the ticket of both the PNC, the LPG, and the NDC. Those were the 3 that we got earlier. That's Professor Alidu Seidu Mahama for the NDC, LPG's Ibrahim Mohammed Hafiz, and PNC's Alidu Mohammed Nasir Dean. They filed their nominations to contest the by-election earlier today. Well, guess what? We've got information that the 2, the PNC candidate and the LPG candidate, have all withdrawn from the race, leaving Professor Alidu Seidu Mahama, the NDC candidate, alone, which technically means that he's an MP already, all things being equal. There's not going to be an election, essentially, any by-election whatsoever. This is in accordance with Regulation 12 of CI 127. So let's show you what we got from the PNC candidate and the LPG candidate. Take a look at this. Say withdrawal letter. This is the PNC candidate. They address it to the Metro Director, Electoral Commission. Say PNC wishes to withdraw their candidate, Alidu Mohammed Nasir Dean, from contesting the upcoming by-elections due to personal reasons. Sorry for the inconvenience that might have caused your commission. Straight to the point. The PNC says, look, for personal reasons, they are out. This was signed by Imoro Mohammed Opash, the regional secretary of the PNC in the Northern region, where the Tamale Central constituency is located. Well, let's look at the LPG, the Liberal Party of Ghana, Kofi Akpalu's LPG as well. Earlier, they filed, but they have decided to withdraw as well. So let's see what the LPG letter contains. The LPG letter also gave some detail on what reason why they, as a party, have taken this path of withdrawing from the race. So they say, the Liberal Party of Ghana extends its deepest condolences to the family, constituents, and colleagues of the late Member of Parliament. His passing is a profound loss to the constituency and to our nation. In recognition of his dedicated service and as a mark of respect, the Liberal Party of Ghana has taken the decision to withdraw from participating in the upcoming Tamale Central by-election. This decision is made both in solidarity with the mourning period and in view of the current political instability in the country, which calls for unity, calm, and constructive engagement rather than a heightened political contest. This is signed by Jerry Owusu Apau, General Secretary, Liberal Party of Ghana. This is what we got from the two. That's the LPG and the PNC. So, well, Professor Alidu Seidu Mahama, the NDC candidate for the Tamale Central constituency, is going in uncontested. Essentially, will be all things being equal, declared MP-elect. But, you know, with the LPG, we've seen some things happen in the past where a statement is released by one person, another statement comes out to counter that. So we are waiting for the next 24 hours to see if the position of these two parties will change. But I want to say thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. I'm Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.